I'm going to call the June 2021 Washington County Finance and Budget Committee meeting to order. I have asked Assessor Russell Hill to do the prayer and pledge for us this evening. If you'll go up there and hit the little man on there, Assessor Hill.
All right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day that you've given us, knowing that every great and wonderful gift comes from you. We ask you to guide us, direct us during this time of this meeting. Thank you for all of the committee members who are here today to preside over this and to watch over the finances of Washington County. We ask you to guide us, direct us, for it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Assessor Hill. Now for the adoption of the agenda. I need to make a motion that we add item 21-0-070 to the agenda. You have a copy in front of you. This is a somewhat emergency, time-sensitive ordinance that was not possibly put on the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That'll be added. Are there any other changes to the agenda for this evening? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. I have a motion by J.P. Simons, a second by J.P. Ussery. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. We'll jump right into our reports for this month. First up is Treasurer Bobby Hill. Go ahead and hit the
First off, update on the rescue funds. Since several counties have already received theirs and we have not, I wanted to, on your desk there's a sheet that is kind of being transparent with y'all, and that we did submit the application. The federal government has the application, and they said it would be 4 business days for a turnaround, and I called yesterday and they said it would be more like 10 to 12 business days. So we will get it. It's just not there quite yet. Going to 4.1, treasure summary. First line, as always, the May and November are 2 best months. In April is when all the mortgage companies clear out their escrow accounts, the property taxes, and so you see revenues in general fund 6.7 compared to 2.6 in expenditures, so a real good month. Down at the road fund, 2,000, same situation with them. 1.4 coming in, 500,000 going out. And down to jail, 3017. Good month by them also. It's been a long time since I've seen an ending monthly balance in the jail of $2.5 million. So they're doing well, holding down their spending and revenues increasing, of course. At the bottom of this report, we ended the month with $60.4 million in the bank. 4.2 is the property taxes received in the general fund. 4.9 million compared to last year. That's 735,000 more. But if you go back, you can see it kind of fluctuates. So there will be some ebbs and flows until we get to November. 4.3, incredible increase in sales tax this month, 31% increase over the same period in 2020. This is the March numbers, and that's when the stimulus checks started hitting people's bank accounts. Thankfully, if you're a county, I guess, the census numbers are not final. Normally, back in March, we would have seen the first hit, but it continues to not be official, so we will continue to get our full share until that time. 4.4, same situation, quarter cent jail tax, 31% increase, almost $300,000 over last year in just 1 month, so pretty incredible. 4.5, just interesting to see what people might have spent their stimulus checks on when it first hit their accounts. The categories with over 60% growth: sporting goods, e-shopping, restaurants, electronics, and clothes. So I hope everybody went out and bought some new clothes this time. 4.6, quarter-cent radio tax. 9 months in, 3 months to go. Tax is doing very well. They'll probably hit 12 million or better when it's over. 4.7, half-cent state tax. Not to be outdone by the local taxes, this tax came in at 41% higher than 2020, at $194,000 this month. Finally, 4.8. These are my very early revenue projections. These numbers will change. Some might change dramatically, hope not, but that is a possibility. Just keep that in mind as you're looking through these. Only thing I want to draw your attention to on this is on the second page, I guess page 13, 3020 emergency 911. I'm only seeing revenues of a little over 500,000, and their budget is usually 800,000. So a lot of counties, the general fund makes up the difference, and we just haven't had to do that. But that could be a possibility coming down. This year, I think John Luther and Judge Wood talking to the cities, because this revamped legislation we got in 2019 really increased funding for 911, but it went to City of Fayetteville and City of Springdale and Central EMS. And the county didn't get any of it. So there might be a little talking between the judge and the cities, but we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, they're going to be a little short this year, I think. And that's all I have.
Questions for Treasurer Hill? Thank you, sir.
You betcha.
Employees Insurance Fund, we have Mr. Nelson Driver with us this evening.
Good evening, everybody. Again, this month, it's good news from the health fund as far as the employee health fund is concerned. We're up about $7,000 as of the end of May as compared to the start of May. So we're staying healthy with the fund. The monies are there. The claims thus far are staying fairly flat. We're maintaining that corridor where our goal and objective is to 3.4 million in that fund, just on a liquidity basis. And right now, we're not in a situation where I would recommend any changes to the funding formula into the fund, either from the court side or from the employee side, from their premium input. So far, so good this year. Typically what we see, and this is just a caution, what we see is in the last quarter of the year, or the calendar year, when people have met their family deductible and individual deductibles, and they start having things done to try to get it into this year before they start over January 1 of 2022. And that's when we typically see an influx of more claims activity. But I'll keep you apprised of that as we move forward throughout the year. But right now, we're in real good shape.
Questions for Mr. Driver? Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Next up is Comptroller Worthen.
6.1 is the expenses by fund and department.
Comptroller Worthen, you're going to speak up a little bit or move the mic more towards you.
Can you hear me now? Okay. 6.1 is the expenses by fund and department. All the budgets seem to be in line for this time of year. If expenses were linear, we should be at about 41.7%, but we're in good shape. And general overall on page 17 is at 37%. And then skipping to page 21 for overall for all the budgets, we're at 31.9% actual spent. Then 6.2 is the unappropriated reserve balance report. And shown there are the 3 ordinances that affected the unappropriated reserve balances. And so our net general after the jail fund allocation and the general reserve added in is $5,875,661. So that's all for the comptroller report.
Questions for Comptroller Worthen? Okay. With that, we're going to move into new business. And first up on deck is we're going to have Comptroller Worthen kind of go over our, hopefully by next budget meeting, we'll all receive our budget books. This is what we're going to be handling. That'll have all the budgets that were submitted, and what I've invited Comptroller Worthen here to do tonight is just kind of go over what we're going to be delivered, kind of some pointers on how to read it, and then this is an opportunity for members to also ask him questions if you have any kind of questions about budgeting or anything. So, Comptroller Worthen?
Okay. And we were thinking this year to just do it totally online and electronically. Didn't know if y'all were okay with that, or if you prefer the hard copy budget books, or if
The electronic version is fine with me. I would ask that if a member wants a hard copy, maybe you could special request that. Take that. Okay.
okay. That way, the online version, as we get updates, it'll be updated online all the time, and then you'll have that, and then you can, without having to keep up with all the updates, pages and so forth. Okay. And so just in general, the quorum court's domain is to approve all budgets for the county, and includes approving the individual salaries for employees. And a budget shouldn't be considered a dirty word, but it's just a tool to be used to spend and save the county's money according to a plan based on forecasted revenue and anticipated expenses. And budgets just have a life of 1 year, and they expire at the end of the calendar year. But we take expenses that pertain to the prior year through the end of February for the final budget reports. And then what I've got here is just the final budget summary from last year to go over a few things, and so in essence, the budget summary is what tells the story of the county budget finances with a one-page summary. It shows the budgeted revenue, the budgeted expenses, and the resulting unappropriated reserve balances. And as far as reading this, I know some of this is probably pretty elementary for some of the experienced members, but for others, it might be helpful. So in cell G1 and G2, that indicates what revision we're looking at, because as Treasurer Hill updates the revenue, it changes all of his part, and then as the budgets are updated, it changes my part. And in columns C through G are Treasurer Hill's part. And the revenue forecast he just presented as columns C through E, and it shows the detail that make up the total shown here, the details of the individual revenue sources. And the only thing it doesn't include is the 10% holdback, which is just 10% for all accounts except for road and jail are calculated a little bit different, but it's pretty close to 10%. And then and then columns G through, H through J are the comptroller part that I compile from the budgets that are submitted. And the way it flows is I've got in the red here, the carryover adds with the projected new revenue to equal the total projected new revenue, and then subtract the holdback, and that's the amount that is legally available to budget. And then they fill in the column H, the requested budgets, and then plus or minus any infusions, and that leaves us with unappropriated reserve balance. And so here in cell H7 is the total of all the general fund budgets. And then you'll notice that there aren't any grant funds here because the grant funds span beyond the calendar year, and they have their own revenue source and stipulations for spending, and so they aren't included here with the budget summary. And the grant budgets are just carried over at the beginning of the following year, the balances, since they span more than the calendar year. And then page 2, I just created a sample budget, the individual budget for demonstration purposes. And here columns C, D, and E show actual money spent by that department. And then column F is the last year's approved budget, and then 2022 is the column G is the department's budget request. And the items in red is what the departments submit. Then the items in the black font are amounts that are calculated and carried over from the salary tab, and then the longevity is based on the employees that qualify, and they'll get paid provided they're still working here in November. And then
Wait a minute, one, I'm gonna interrupt you. Scroll back up for me, would you, Comptroller Worthing? Sure. Down in the bottom right corner of that budget, bottom right corner there, go over that for us. You give us some special broken out numbers and percentages there. Could you even possibly zoom in on that and give us some background there, please?
Okay. Let's see. Okay, down here in the bottom right corner, it calculates what the non-personal services increase is. So in this case, for this budget, they're requesting a 3.8 increase in the non-personal services, which so this entire top section here is excluded because it's mostly driven by the salaries and the existing employees. And then the overall budget increase, counting everything, in this case, is 2% increase comparing last year's budget and the current year's budget. Then it also calculates the dollar change overall. And then so that kind of just calculates two different ways, the increase or decrease in the budget from the prior year. Then this year, JP Deacons is asking for line item explanations, so each budget should explain each line item and how they came up with that number, so that y'all will be able to read through it and have most of your questions answered beforehand without having to ask the person in charge of that budget. And so, like, I just made some things up here. That 1002, that's the part-time salaries line item, and I just put here one part-time employee, assistant with managing parts, and then 1005 is the overtime, other premium compensation, and I just put there the anticipated overtime for the office manager, and if a new employee is hired, that overtime will no longer be needed. And then supplies, just based on prior year's actual dollars plus 2% inflation, and then line item 2002 for small equipment, they plan to replace 10 radios and 2 desks, and then they should just list all the line items and how they came up with that number. And then capital expenditure explanations. We've been requiring this in prior years. Like in this case, this department's requesting $24,000 to replace their Ford pickup they use for deliveries, and then machinery and equipment, they want to replace their brush hog. And then for the personnel justifications, they should request, explain why they're needing a new person, and then detail out the cost, including the Social Security matching, the retirement matching, health insurance and life insurance that the county has to provide. And then they should also list in this section if they need, I remember one department asked for a new person, then they forgot to ask for the desk and the computer and things that went with it, so they should also list the cost that it takes to outfit that person as well here, so that y'all have a total cost addition to the budget that person is going to add to the budget if y'all approve it. And then then back to page 2. Or I guess that's page 3. This is a sample salary budget, and the salaries are approved by position, not by the employee. So the slot numbers there, the positions, and then that's the title, and then that's That's their grade, and then I just have the same salary listed for 2022 as 2021 until y'all decide on a percentage raise for the employees. And then here at the top is the number of positions, and that figures in calculating the health insurance and life insurance and the per position quantities. And then the total here for the salaries here in this cell D21 at 592,000, that carries over to here in the budget, and then that amount calculates through to cover the Social Security and all the other expenses associated with the gross salary amount. And then these are just standard positions, but there's some other categories of positions that they're a little more complicated. For example, the sheriff's budgets have flex positions where the employee is hired and they have the potential to be promoted through several grades during the year if they meet their training requirements. So we've always budgeted in the past for the highest level that they could achieve during the year. So in those cases, I can't take their actual salary because for budgeting purposes, it needs to be the highest flex position that they could achieve. And then the sheriff also has 207K positions where the employees are allowed to work up to 43 hours a week at straight time. So we have to budget at the higher hours than what a regular 2,080 hour year would be. So their budget doesn't come up short either. And then the sheriff has their special category of the step positions that were approved by the quorum court a couple of years ago. So and since the HR has their own HR department, I rely on them to supply the salaries for those positions because of all those variations. And then elected officials is another separate compensation system whereby the state ordinance applies a 3% cost of living every year to the minimum and maximum salary levels. And then their salaries are set by the quorum court through the budget controls every year. And currently, in the past, the court has done it according to a schedule depending on years of service as an elected official from 80% to 100%, to where they start out at 80%, and after 8 years service, they go up to 100%. And the court has always approved the maximum according to that schedule. And then, so those are the different categories. You got regular employees, the sheriff's step employees, and the elected officials. And then finally, this is kind of a ballpark generic estimate of price tag for each group. So elected officials would cost, to give them the same raises in the past, be about $64,000, and the sheriff's step raises would be about $210,000, and then all the rest of the employees, it would cost about $280,000 per percentage point raise given to them, and so they're laid out here from 1% to 5% of what it costs cost the county for those raises. So that's pretty much all I had. If y'all have any questions.
Thank you, Comptroller Worthen. Are there any questions for Comptroller Worthen? JP Johnson and JP.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I've just got two easy ones. Are we going to format the budget for next year the same way we formatted the budget for this year?
You mean as far as alphabetical by
By
the-
elected official?
Well, I can do it whichever way y'all prefer. I mean, in prior years, we've done it according to the budget number. And then last year, it was changed to by elected official, thinking it'd be easier for y'all, but it's whatever y'all prefer. I like it by number, but I'm a numbers person.
Well, it's way easier in my mind to track it by elected official
Okay.
than the other way. And then the other thing I'm concerned about, it's a difficult chore when you've got a paper budget to keep up with the changes. If you have a digital budget, do you have a method for letting us know what's changed in each iteration?
Well, I could just put a date on the new version, and then you'd have each dated version in there. And you could go back and see what it started at and what it's currently at. So I could put that online, and so that the logistics of that should be easy to track.
Can hear with the same system. But we need to have a way that we can keep track of the changes and track them from each iteration, or we're just spinning our wheels.
Yeah, I'll make sure that that's clear and
I
tracked.
would think that, too, what JP Johnson might be getting at, and in addition to dating the changes, we might need some alert to what has actually changed. You know what I mean? So I don't know, maybe if you could send out maybe a weekly email with maybe a list of what you've changed in, you know what I mean? You could
Yeah.
date the pages, but also give us specifics about what lines or expenses you're changing. That might be helpful.
Yeah, last year we had a sheet, a running sheet of the changes, so I could do that as well to help y'all keep track of them.
JP Ussery.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all the work you've done on this. I deeply appreciate the one-page synopsis. I think that's extremely helpful. And then I was going to ask the same question, that if we could, any changes, if they could say, here's the new one, these are the changes that we made. I think that would help all of us stay on track. And then my last question is, hopefully you're going to send this to all of us so we have a chance to look at it before the next meeting.
Yes, I can send this PDF file to everybody.
Yeah, if you could. Thank you.
You bet.
JP Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the file version, will it be in Excel or is it going to be PDF format?
I could put it in either version, I guess, whichever y'all prefer.
Okay. Yeah, I would love it to be in Excel so I could do percent change across the board. And then I want to echo JP Johnson's request for by elected official as well. And then while I'm being extra needy, I'll ask for a printed copy as well initially to review, and then I'll go through and do the Excel version.
Okay.
Thank
Will
you,
do.
sir.
Will do.
Any other questions for Comptroller Worthen? Sounds great. We're, so here's my initial plan, and I appreciate any feedback, but our deadline for budget submission is this Friday, so Comptroller Worthen is gonna gather those. He has some work to do on his end to gather and accumulate them all. So we'll get those out as soon as we can, so you guys can start working through them. You know, it's always been my hope that we would address some things on the front end of the budget, including employee grading and raises, so I hope maybe we can start doing that in July. I would look for expanded possibilities of additional meetings in August and September to review budgets. My ultimate deadline is I would like to have a budget to the full quorum court in October. So that's kind of the lay of the land as I see it. And I really challenge everyone, all the JPs, if you have questions, reach out to the elected officials and, bring those questions and answers back to the meeting so we can all share them. That way we can kind of, leverage some of our time there. Thanks, sir. Appreciate you.
You bet.
All right, item number 8 on the agenda is an ordinance changing the title of GIS Analyst / Senior Programmer to GIS Manager in the County Assessor Budget for 2021. Assessor Hill, would you like to speak to this? Give us some background.
Really, it's just a title change. There's no change in the grade. The person that was in this position before, that's what they did for the county for a number of years until he retired. We reassessed that position of what we need in our office and brought it before the Johansson brothers. And they suggested the title change to GIS Manager. And so it doesn't change anything financially. We don't even have the position filled yet. We're changing the title. We've reworked the job description so that we can then post it. And then this is a pretty specialized area in our office. Of course, it's a grade 26, so it's a pretty high grade. So we're going to take our time to make sure we get the right candidate that fills the needs for this position. But other than that, it's just basically a title change.
Great, thank you, sir. Are there any questions for Assessor Hill? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
A motion to pass to full quorum court by J.P. Duncan, second by J.P. Simons. Further discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Item 8.1 passes to the full quorum court. Item number 9, an ordinance changing the title and grade of juvenile care worker positions in the Juvenile Detention Center budget for 2021. Chief of Staff Lester, would you like to address this?
We're requesting just the title change to help attract and hire potential employees. What we found out is the care worker title is not very desirable by people looking at these jobs. If you think about it with JDC, it's a little different than our going into the law enforcement side with the sheriff's office. With the sheriff's office side, we get detention officers, but they then also have the ability to then be promoted up into the enforcement side. With JDC, there is no enforcement side. And so a lot of times we get applicants who want to come in and use that title of a detention officer to then move on maybe to another position. So all we're asking for is a title change. It'll be a grade change, 2 cents per hour, which for the rest of the year would be about $110 for all 5 positions. And so there's not a need for any money to be appropriated.
Thank you, Chief of Staff Lester. I will also say that I've spent some time with Director Collins down at the JDC, and I think we're seeing challenges there and in the detention center of drawing applicants for this very important job. And so if this is something that we can do to help her, I'm all for it. Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. J.P. Johnson makes a motion to pass to the full quorum court, second by J.P. Duncan. Any further discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Item 9.1 moves to the full quorum court. Item number 10, an ordinance changing the title of Assistant Parts Manager to Heavy Equipment Operator in the county roads budget for 2021. Chief of Staff Lester?
Yes, this is just a request to change the title because of the inventory system that we now have. We don't need an assistant parts manager, and so we can better utilize that position as a heavy equipment operator, which is the standard for our road guys out in the field. So we're just asking to change that over to an HEO so that we can better utilize that position.
Are there any questions for Chief of Staff Lester? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Passage.
Move passage to full quorum court made by J.P. Duncan. Second by J.P. Wilson. Any further discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Item 10.1 moves to the full quorum court. Item 11, an ordinance changing the title of Deputy Circuit Clerk 1 to Deputy Circuit Clerk 1/Administrative Assistant in the Circuit Clerk budget for 2021. Uh-oh. Did this go through Personnel Committee, J.P. Ecke? Would you mind giving us some background on it? By putting you on the spot?
The one time I don't bring my folder with me. Comes from Circuit Clerk Kyle Sylvester's office. In his letter of justification this is a formal request to change the position, and the replacement will also change the salary range from the grade 10 to grade 11 due to the added responsibilities outlined in the new position, but it does not add any slots, any open slots to the budget for the circuit clerk's office. So he's changing the grade from grade 10 to grade 11 due to the responsibilities outlined in the new job description. I think that's what they're doing right now. The elected officials are really going into, working with Blair Johansson, the Johansson brothers, to look at areas of responsibility and the right description for that job. And if there's a grade change because of those added responsibilities, then that's what they're trying to do, making sure that everybody's well compensated for their responsibilities.
Thank you, J.P. Ecke, and thanks for letting me put you on the spot.
That's fine. And if this could just, and the others be put on a do pass list recommendation,
Thank you.
usually.
I'd entertain a motion. J.P. Wilson moves to pass to the full quorum court with the do pass recommendation.
Second.
Second by J.P. Duncan. Any further discussion? Public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Item 11.1 moves to the full quorum court with a do pass recommendation. Item number 12, J.P. Simons. Wait, there you go.
There we go. So I spoke with Assessor Hill a few years back. He had a fleet of about 7 vehicles. They use these vehicles to perform business checks and audits in and around the county. And with the population growth and the building boom taking place, he's kind of had to double up on that. And he's asking for another vehicle to increase his fleet back to 7. He has unused monies in a Board of Equalization fund and is simply asking that we move over those funds into his general assessor capital fund. Is asking for $35,000. The county general would cover 9% of that, which is roughly $3,150.
J.P. Simons, can you move your mic closer?
I'm sorry. Asking for $35,000, 9% of that would come from county general. The other would be the schools, cities, and libraries. And I move passage.
I have a motion by J.P. Simons to pass the full quorum court with a do pass recommendation. Second by J.P. Ussery. Any discussion? Assessor Hill, I do have some questions. Can you entertain that?
Yes, sir.
Give us some background on this account, because this is something that you use, it's cyclical, right? It's periodic when you do
It's
assessment.
annual, it's an annual count, Board of Equalization. It's actually the line item out of our reappraisal budget. So we have this go-round, we're on a 3-year cycle for our countywide reappraisal. At the time when I when I was budgeting for that, it was out for bid. We had it out for RFP. And so I hadn't received any bids. We have a certain process that we have to go through with the state when putting out these bids, because it is a large annual contract for the next 3 years. So I shot high because I didn't want to have to come back to the quorum court and ask for more money. And so once the bids came in, they were under that. I have some, so that left me a surplus of money for this year. Previously, when I was first in office, things had kind of, the whole building boom had kind of subsided and everything. And so we used to have a larger fleet. We reduced it by a vehicle. We were also in major finding ways just to cut and save money. So we did that, and that was one of the ways we did it. We're back in a building boom again. We've got businesses moving in. We've got new construction taking place. We're stretched thin on our vehicles, and we've got a lot of work to do, auditing, going out there doing field checks and stuff. So instead of asking for more money, I've got money sitting over here that we're just going to turn it back at the end of the year anyway. Could we use a small portion of that $35,000? And again, this is out of an account, since we're a commission-based office. The actual amount that would come out of county general would be about $3,150. The rest would come from whatever money we don't use, we're going to turn all that back anyway.
Do you know how much money do you still have in that? So I went back and pulled the budget from last year just because I needed some. So that line item usually runs about $1 million, right?
It was, because we're on a 5-year cycle. This
Okay.
year it's 1.3 something million.
165.
Well, yeah, that's what I put in. The actual contract ended
Gotcha.
up being 1.3, so that left us with a surplus of 200 and something.
250 or something like that?
250,000.
So
yeah.
that account should still be there. You don't expect any further costs out of that account
Nope.
for the rest of the year? Okay, that's just what I wanted.
Yeah,
to
no,
first,
there's
but-
nothing else that should come out of there. There was a little bit that came out. The way that the reappraisal does is with the way that the contract reads, because whenever we start that contract reappraisal, we do a set number of parcels. This is how many parcels we have on the tax books. Well, over that 5-year cycle, we grew by nearly 5,000 parcels. Written in the contract, it's so many dollars per parcel that we pay. It ended up being $95,000. We have no way to anticipate that because we don't know how many new parcels are going to be added during this next 3 years. So we did take $95,000 out of that to cover that portion of the contract. So, but nothing else should come out of this.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion or questions? Public comments? I have a motion to pass the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by J.P. Simons, a second by J.P. Usry. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? This item 12.1 passes to the full quorum court. Item 13, an ordinance anticipating reimbursement of $11,950 in the general fund and appropriating the amount of $11,950 from the unappropriated reserves of the general fund to various line items in the sheriff's budget for 2021. Chief Deputy Cantrell, would you like to speak to this, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jay Cantrell with the Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office received a grant from the state for selective traffic enforcement. And with that grant, we can do overtime to do speed enforcement, seatbelt enforcement, DWI enforcement, and distracted driving enforcement. And we can also purchase car seats to give away to people in need. So, and this year we also were able to purchase a speed radar trailer. So that's what this money is for. Part of that $28,000 is to purchase a speed trailer and $2,000 for the car seats. So we just asked to get it appropriated back into a line item so that we could spend it.
Thank you, Chief Deputy Cantrell. Any discussion or comments? JP Duncan,
I just move passage of item number 13.
I have a motion to pass item 13.1 to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. Second by JP Simons. Any further discussion? Any public comment? All those in favor? Those opposed? Item 13.1 moves to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. Item 14.1, an ordinance recognizing revenue in the amount of $16,244 in the Animal Shelter Grant Fund 3515 and appropriating $16,244 from the Animal Shelter Grant Fund to the Animal Shelter Grant Fund budget 351500308 for 2021. As the ordinance reads, this is a grant that the animal shelter has received, and they would like to appropriate this money to add some kennels and also upgrade their security system. I would entertain a motion on this item.
So moved.
I have a motion to pass to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by JP Duncan. Second by JP Ostrey. Sorry, I didn't hear that. Any discussion? Public comment? All those in favor? Those opposed? Item 14.1 moves to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. Item number 15, an ordinance appropriating $71,186.84 from the Coronavirus Relief Fund to various line items and various budgets for 2021 to correct errors and omissions. This is a follow-up to our ordinance that we passed the last quorum court meeting to give our detention center officers and JDC detention officers a bonus. There were some errors in that calculation. My understanding is it has to do with some matching funds that were left out to satisfy APRs and some other things. So this is an additional cost to that ordinance. I'd entertain a motion. I have a motion to pass to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by JP Wilson.
Second.
Second by JP Duncan. Any discussion or questions? Public comment?
Thank you. JP Evelyn Rio Stafford in Fayetteville. More of a question than a comment. How did this get, do we know how this got left out of the original ordinance? And who wrote the original? How did the original ordinance get written without this?
My understanding is that it was just it was an error and omission. It was a mistake, and I don't think there's any other great explanation for it. Of course, I'm disappointed. I like for our ordinances to be correct the first time when they come. But I would also add that, during the pandemic and its subsequent, we're asking our employees to do things they've never done before, and we're also asking our staff to do things they've never done before. This is a little bit, it's not something that we do every day, so unfortunately, it's something that I would like to see corrected, but it's just an error.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Further public comments? I have a motion to pass to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by JP Wilson, second by JP Duncan. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? That passed, I'm losing track of my numbers now. Item 15.1, is it 15? Yes. 15.1 moves to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. Now we have the added item that we amended the budget, or the agenda for, item 21-0-070. This is an ordinance appropriating $70,978 from the unappropriated reserves in the general fund to the improvements other than buildings line item in the buildings and grounds budget for 2021. As the ordinance states, we have become aware that the courthouse annex, the fire panel is out in that building, is no longer operational. It cannot be fixed, and it needs to be replaced wholly. Of course, this has a lot of ramifications for fire safety and things like that. I would entertain a motion, and if we have discussion or questions, I think Chief of Staff Lester is here to help address any of those.
I move passage of item number 16.
I have a motion to pass item 16 to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by J.P. Duncan, a second by J.P. Simons. Any discussion? Public comment?
Thank you, Chairman. Beth Coger, Fayetteville. I just now saw this, so my only question right now is, my statement would be, did we get bids for this? Because, I'm always asking that, but did we get bids before we got this amount? And how did we get this amount? Okay. Thank you.
Any additional public comments? I have a motion to pass 16 to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by J.P. Duncan. My second was J.P. Wilson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Item 16 moves to full quorum court with a due pass recommendation. J.P. Duncan.
I move that we add items 8 through 16 to a consent agenda for the quorum court.
I have a motion by J.P. Duncan to add items 8 through 16 to a consent agenda in the full quorum court, a second by J.P. Wilson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, sir. Final item on our agenda is public comment period. We have a 12-minute public comment period with 3-minute limit for each individual commenter. Public comments.
Hello, thank you. JP Hires, Fayetteville. I actually had a question when Comptroller Worthen was speaking, but I don't think you saw me back there, and then I realized how the kid in the back of my classroom might feel sometimes. I wanted to know if the JPs who are not on the committee are going to have access to the budget binders. As we all have constituents who are taxpayers, I think it's really appropriate that we're able to look at those same binders.
Absolutely.
Great.
It never was intended not to. Yeah.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to comment on, as far as consent agendas, we're not all on this committee, so I don't understand how you can do a consent agenda whenever there's lots of people here not consenting.
Well, I'm going to roll it on to the full quorum court. You know, we'll let Councilor Lester tell us, but my understanding is any member has any ability to pull the item off the consent agenda at the quorum court, so I don't see any harm with it this evening. And if further debate's needed, I would welcome you to pull it off.
All right, thank you.
No problem. Any more public comments? This meeting's adjourned.